Welcome my friends, this is Maniacal Incorporated, and while it doesn't look great at the moment, I think it's fair to say that we are in the final days of the religious wars which have engulfed the Frankish Empire over the last number of years. Eoin, the missionary, hasn't contributed to the military victories, but he has contributed to the spiritual welfare of the region, spreading insularism to counter the Cathar heresy once promoted by King Louis II of West Francia, and indeed by Karl of Flanders, the future emperor of the Frankish Empire, who has now been bought into the insular faith. And so while we wait for news of the defeat of Louis II, Eoin is going to take an opportunity to create a work of learning. Indeed, the Count of Antwerp describes it as a mind-boggling piece of scripture. Yeah, just ignore that one weak chapter in the middle. Now, when we became a scholar camp at the very start, Eoin and all of his followers had a pair of glasses, but those have been taken off of us at some stage. Now, however, in his old age, Eoin is finding it hard to read. That's probably what resulted in that poor chapter in the middle of the last book that we had. So we will lose 50 gold, gain some learning lifestyle experience, and get ourselves a new pair of shades. For our learning lifestyle perk, we'll take acclaimed authors, artifact decay reduction, that's handy, and followers produce significantly higher quality artifacts. And we have somebody completing a book at the moment, so that'll hopefully benefit them. And what a jolly time Eoin is having in Flanders. He's already completed a task for Karl to seek the protection of the new insularist converts in this region from Louis II. Now we're going to take part in a play. The people of Flanders are organising a play that imitates old heroic tales. Duke Karl is desperate to find a chivalrous knight that will satisfy their desires. There is no knight in Christendom more chivalrous than Master Eoin with his new glasses. So what we have here is an Irishman in Bruges. We're preparing for the play. Karl, the grandson of the Empress, so Duke Karl's son, is not impressed with the wooden sword that some of the actors are carrying. Duke Karl tells us that this is an easy windfall. All we have to do is impress some peasants. This ought to be fun. And here's another Irishman in Bruges, Christ, who is introduced to us by Giat. We could recruit him to assist Giat in producing a much better book, or we could actually have him become our personal instructor. Giat is shoving on in years. This will actually give him a negative penalty, but you know what? It's an Irishman in Bruges. We will recruit Christ of the Crusader Kings as our personal instructor. And he also gets a pair of shades. And with there being so many Irishmen in Bruges at the moment, we'll actually take a look at Ireland itself. The High King, Clairkin, finds himself in a great deal of trouble. His army was never the strongest, and he is currently heavily losing a war against Connacht, which has actually swept south and taken Ennis. So the Jarldom of Munster has been reduced to just a single territory. And it's entirely possible, with this victory, if he takes Breffni, Muiredach will be able to usurp the High Kingship itself. It's a bit of bad timing, Giat. I've just spent a lot of money upgrading our pavilion in the camp, and Giat needs money for his book inspiration. We took an assistant off of you, so go on, we'll give you 50 quid. And with that 50 quid, Giat smiles and proclaims his masterpiece is finished. Irish Guide to the Esoteric. Oh, I misread that. Prestige, 0.01 per month. Clergy Opinion, -4. Monthly learning lifestyle experience, plus 20%. It's going to last for 600 years. It is an illustrious trinket. The cover is velvet that has been embroidered to display a repeating image of interlaced knot patterns. All craftsmanship is of the highest quality. I am very impressed. We have a rather crazy list of trinkets. I think we're going to replace the small bell beaker for now with the Irish guide to the esoteric. And that'll pretty much help us finish off the learning lifestyle tree that we're going down, the scholar tree, and then I might replace it again with the bell beaker to get that +1 learning. And here we have them, the two boys, the two Irishmen in Bruges. Gillicreast comes running up to us, telling us that the courtiers in the court are speaking of us. The men admire you, the children pretend to be like you. Fish fear you, and the whole camp seems to think you the greatest man alive. We could finish the job ourselves and perform in the play. +1 advantage, we need 5, we have 4. We're on the verge of getting that anyway, but you know what, I think Eoin absolutely, in Bruges, would seek to place himself in a play being performed at the behest of the future Emperor. I will finish the job myself. Now, we could still face disaster. We have gotten up to 98%, which is the max that we can get to. We have 7 advantages. We will seize the moment and perform in a play. It is a success. And then he slew a ferocious boar. The drums grow louder as I make my way through the stage, trying to remember every play that I've ever watched. The head rolls off the stage, and the audience erupts in loud cheering. We don't really have that long of a path. We're just staying in Bruges. We're going to go out now and we're going to do a tour. We're going to hit all the bars. And indeed, while we're performing on stage, pretending to kill a boar, we receive news that Emperor Louis, demoted to King Louis, has been demoted even further to Count Louis. He skipped Duke, just went all the ways down to the very bottom. He has lost his war, and now finds himself attacking the Empress in a war for his claim to the empire itself. His forces, however, are absolutely destroyed. And we're going to take this opportunity to move our camp right next door. Because with the Cathar heresy on the run, we want to stamp it out completely. Here is Count Rudolf, the younger brother of Duke Karl, so a potential successor to the Frankish Empire. We will convert him away from the Cathar beliefs of formerly held by his brother, and that his father held. And we will continue to perform tasks in the region, aiming to get some provisions together because we are running a bit low. We're told that Rudolf has indeed joined us in the Insular faith just as we arrive to translate some texts or to transcribe them. I see the similarities to Goidelic. So we have a successful transcription, and the Count tells us that he is much obliged. We've actually been really lucky with the tasks that we have in this region. A couple of learning tasks popped up, so we're going to do another one to create another work of learning. It was another exhaustive work, 5 lengthy chapters, 3 of them on Owen's martial knowledge, and 2 of them on his wits and humour. All terrific chapters. Another wonder in the world, and a good chunk of provisions which we need. Now, while we're having a great time in Flanders, Duke Karl has received news that his mother's wars are not progressing as well as she would have liked. She's actually losing in her war against Count Louis for his bid to retake the Frankish Empire, possibly because she has so many other conflicts that she's involved in, including this rather lengthy, that's been going on for 4 years now, a Cathar uprising, which is causing a lot of trouble in Brittany as well. And after all the plays that we've been in, after all the books we've written, and all the books that we've defaced with Owen, we've gained our last learning lifestyle perk to finish off the scholar tree. So +3 learning, which is the main thing from that. We gain the trait scholar, and what I'm actually going to do, instead of going down whole of body, I'm going to switch to heralding. And I'm actually going to go for the befriend scheme. Having leveled up our pavilion, we can add another building around our camp. Do you know what? We'll go for a roaring campfire. It's going to give us an extra night. I'm mainly going for the fireside chat. We've been hobnobbing with the Mayor of Rosslare for a fairly lengthy period of time, and the news coming from the heart of the Frankish Empire is not good. Judith continues to lose ground in her war against Louis. But for now, we will seize the moment and conclude our contract here. We've made some friends in high places, we flex our muscles, get some provisions and some money. We have a long path ahead of us. And indeed, Eoin will need those provisions because he has a lengthy journey ahead of him. He will travel to Rome to report directly to the Pope on the proceedings in the Frankish Empire. He's going to travel first of all to Aachen to gain some diplomacy lifestyle experience, head south to Hohenberg, across the Alps down to the Vatican, and then on the return journey will stop at Regensburg, the capital of the Kingdom of Bavaria, before returning to Flanders to converse with Duke Karl, possibly, at that stage, Emperor Karl. To cross the Alps, he's taken Pathfinder's gear, and what an undertaking. He will have the highest level, Fidelity, which will gain extra piety, and the pomp. He will have a throng of interested characters and 20 random pilgrims in his train. What a train that will be to Rome. And the pilgrimage is already off to a bad start. A peasant wants money. We could kill him. Or we could gain some stress by giving him 15 gold. He's thankful, but he wants more for medicine. Go on. Edward? How pious do we want to make this pilgrimage? Yes, fine, the children as well. God's generosity is great indeed, but I think Eoin's has a limit. We could give him another 50 gold. Instead, we will tell him to go with God's blessing. So after giving away a good chunk of money and making our pilgrimage very pious, we come across an Irishman, Wael Morda, a monk in the middle of Liege, proclaiming the end of days. We could make the pilgrimage even more pious, but you know what? We'll get rid of a good chunk of that stress that we've just built up. Gilachrist, you're lucky that we've gotten our stress under control, or this is the option that we'd be taking. Gilachrist has fallen in love with a fallen woman and wants 50 quid to marry her, and we'll grow closer to forming a friendship with Gilachrist. Go on. An 18-year-old peasant leader is having a crisis of faith. We will try to offer them an alternative perspective, but our conversion fails, and we did not manage to turn them into a friend, yet they've now become a suffragan bishop. So, do you know what? Things are looking up for them. But he's become a powerful rival all of a sudden. As we cross the Alps, we find another Irish insular religious figure, Henri Ucrahur. He's saying mass, but the crowd is dwindling because of the rain. What is a little rain to a faithful insularist? We've managed to stave off becoming ill. And there we go. After that lengthy journey, our piousness is already at the max. We visit the Grand Cathedral, gain some learning lifestyle experience, which could be put to use in the whole of body tree. I have walked the holy path. But before worrying about whole of body, we're in a position to take a diplomacy lifestyle perk, and like I said, we're going to go for befriend. As we enter the sacred grounds, we find Flaherty staring at an altar with an absent expression. He wishes to stay behind in Rome and devote his life to God. What a turn of events for a character that we hired because of his very high intrigue. A suspicious character that we met in a bar somewhere. This has obviously been his destiny all along, to find God in Rome. Never managed to have a giant child with his wife. And as he is 52 years of age, Flaherty the Loyal, we will tell him that we understand. You have to do what you have to do. But now, leaving our second behind in Rome, we will take our leave of the Holy City. And considering that he was of the gallows bait trait, we too will repent for, I think it was some fake religious artifacts that we sold. We will repent and gain 568 piety. And as we depart from Rome, I think it is only fitting that as our new second, we would appoint Gilacreast u Crahurdan. Speaking of friends, let us start a scheme to befriend Duke Carl. As we depart from Rome, as we depart from the Holy City, one of the courtiers following in the train of our pilgrimage spots the mark on your hand. Is that a sacred wound? We must record this. It is rather interesting. For 20 years, Owen will claim to have stigmata. This character carries a mark that they can claim is akin to those suffered by Jesus. This has proved wildly controversial. And we have... what an update. Our personal physician, Giat, has just died. Adela has killed him in self-defense. Giat and Adela never saw eye to eye. They were fighting. I let them fight it out. And Adela has just slain a very old man who had some tremendous learning and who had written a book for us. So, an infirm man threatened a woman to a fight. And Giat the Bearded has died just as we return from our pilgrimage. It's good to be home. Well, that is an absolute pity. Giat managed to cure us on a number of occasions when we fell ill, and of course he had written the Irish Guide to the Esoteric. Warburg Bacon, a witch who we met on our journeys, will become our new physician to replace him. She'll never replace Giat the Bearded. Though we return slightly downhearted at the loss of our physician, we do return to some slightly better news. First of all, there has been a dramatic change in the Cathar uprising. Indeed, Judith is managing to hold off Louis' claims to the Empire, and we're seeing another uprising. She is not doing well, however, in the Independence War being waged by Jorvik, so they might indeed lose part of their English possessions, but holding on to the Empire itself, that is the most important thing, and defeating the Cathars. So to help with that, we're going to begin moving our camp, and I'm going to visit this region first of all to convert it, and then we're going to reach for here, and we'll have this big long insular chain reaching out from Flanders through Normandy. We have a few conversions along the way, and we have a successful conversion. We're going to continue to move the camp briefly into Anjou to carry out a conversion, and then probably move into Brittany. The most religious life of Master Owen makes claims that Master Owen of the Irish Rovers has powers beyond even God himself. No! The divine power is derived from God. God gave me these holes in my hands. And we receive the fantastic news that we have made a friend. Duke Carl has become our friend after finding common ground. The scheme has been successful. We are closer now than ever. Just as we travel to Lyon, where we have been told there is a bit of a Cathar holdout. And you know what we could do with high martial figures in our court? We could probably do with some high intrigue to replace Flaherty, who became a monk. But this guy, we will tell him to forget his foolishness looking for holy water and join our camp. And while we are here, we will fulfill a number of tasks in Normandy and Brittany before probably pushing down towards the capital of the empire to see how things stand. We've completed a transcription for Duke Dag's Chancellor, who's not exactly in a position to actually hold the book that we've transcribed, but he's much obliged. We've completed all the tasks in this region, and we're now left with the most evil sum of money it is possible to have. We will, to get rid of some of that, expand the barber's tent, which will increase our domicile income. And so with all the tasks completed in the region, Eoin will begin to move down the coast towards the capital. We'll take a bit of a stop, and we might even wander around it. There are a number of Cathar regions that we might actually see about dealing with, just as Judith has dealt with the Cathar uprising, which she is no longer fighting. However, while she's progressing well in the war against Count Louis, the one against Jorvik is not going well at all, and I think that might be predominantly because Wael Cian, the disgraceful of Alba, is involved, and I don't think his performance is very graceful. We arrive, we convert, and we find a solicit charity contract and some stewardship contracts. I was actually going to search for some contracts in the local town, but the problem is they'll most likely appear in here, and we'd better not go into Anjou. So from Count Geoffrey, we're going to seek alms for our holy task. As we are gaining quite a lot of stress, especially as we convert regions to insularism, I think we're going to take the Confidant Diplomacy Lifestyle perk, which will mean that each friend adds minus 5% stress gain. And Eoin will try to befriend the new Countess Blanche. She probably needs a friend. Her father, Bouchard, who we had a mixed relationship with, has died. She has inherited. And so we will start a scheme to befriend and guide her on the path to insular enlightenment. I think Eoin feels responsible for all these insularists that he's created in the Frankish Empire, and he wants to guide them, or at least befriend them. And as we solicit charity from Count Geoffrey, we're going to try and solicit even more charity. We could get some provisions or money. He will get a weak hook, however. We will take the provisions. And just as we got those provisions from him, he donned a helmet and began marching away because his liege is involved in a war between Navarra and Barcelona. And here's a stupid face that we thought we'd never see again. Adhemar, who we attempted to convince to join us on our pilgrimage to Rome, he refused and instead put on a mitre, but not the rest of the outfit. This is the former peasant leader. He is spreading rumours to Blanche. We must not let him besmirch our good name. We're going to gain some stress, possibly, as a result of this. And as a result of all the pressure that he has been under, Eoin, I think, thought that the religious uncertainty in the Frankish Empire would have been sorted out long by now, but instead, the region has been racked by an ever-increasing series of wars. He's under tremendous pressure, and his mortal body is beginning to feel the effects of it. If only we had Giat beside us. Warburg, do no more than is necessary. And we are indeed feeling a bit brighter. From Ireland we receive news that the High King Clerkin has died and has been succeeded by his brother, Urca. And his heir at the moment is Donald O'Voyle, a brother of Flanchina, if I am correct. And as a blind individual, he would have been ineligible to succeed to any titles in this time period. Blinding was used by rulers on their ascent to power. They would quite often blind close family members to prevent them from challenging. But that rule hasn't been implemented in the base game, was implemented in the Tip Volume 2 mod, where blind figures, as part of the Breton Law update, would not be able to inherit And this is perfect timing because Geoffrey has just taken his armour off. I think he's returned home from the war, even though it continues on. And we will take this opportunity to beg him for money. We put our hands together. Please, 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 Geoffrey. Give us some money. And some provisions. Thanks. And with very little effort, we could actually get Geoffrey to convert to insularism. And here's another good friend of ours in the region, Duke Ablas, who converted to insularism quite a while ago. Now he's off fighting in a war. Actually, that war has ended by the looks of it. The one between Barcelona and Navarra. So we will take a contract to collect some taxes. We've been quizzing his vassals. We're currently 3 for 3. This is the 4th and final vassal. 96% chance of success. We've made our decision. We will get them all to pay in full. And Duke Ablas, who has become ill by the looks of it, is ecstatic. Oh, and of course we also arrive and force the region to convert to insularism. Why not? And on top of all that, we have managed to befriend Blanche, even with that devil trying to put bad thoughts in our head and say bad things about us. Duke Carl is after putting on a uniform. He's going off in some direction, fighting somebody. I wonder if maybe he is involved in his mother's war against Count Louis, which is finally turning positive. This is another disaster. As we arrive to sort out a boundary dispute, I realise that what happened is that our camp was here and possibly Duke Ablas requested it to be transferred, and once it was transferred, we made an attempt to convert the region. I was wondering how that had actually happened. Allow me to inspect this map of yours. It was upside down. Another happy patron. We're going to move our camp south into a Cathar region. There's a couple of other Cathar regions here, however, they are surrounded by plague. They are being protected by unholy forces, so we're probably going to have to kind of hold off in this region for a while and possibly look for some more contracts. So we've just moved to La Marche, beside the capital, and we find ourselves in the presence of Count Carloman, a Cathar, and indeed Duke Ramnulf's spymaster. We've managed to convert this region to insularism. There's an 87% chance that we will be able to bring Carloman with us. And while we're here, we will get some scholarly work for ourselves, which will allow us to create a work of learning for Count Nicholas, 21 years of age, and Marshal to the King of Aquitaine. What a fine court Count Nicholas has. It probably overawed us a small bit because we got a poor chapter in the work that we created for him, focusing predominantly on pilgrimages. So 2 terrific chapters on pilgrimages, 1 poor and 2 terrific chapters on our wit and humour. Count Nicholas, I live to serve. Indeed, we had a fantastic time at Count Nicholas's court. We've been cured of our illness, and we're actually moving our camp to his court. And as we do, we learn that Jorvik has been successful in its independence war. It has broken away from the Frankish Empire, and now Judith has been dragged into a war defending the King of Alba against High Chieftain Donal Mac Constantine in his bid to seize control, actually to overthrow the king and seize it for himself. As we arrive, we first attempt to convert Count Nicholas's county. And I'm not too sure when, but Count Nicholas himself has actually already converted to insularism. Our visit to his court had a dramatic effect on him, and so we will, if I can find it, start a scheme to befriend him. We're attempting another solicit charity task, and the people in our camp have given Warburg a nickname, Warburg the Witch. Very original, guys. And indeed, here we have two witches, Warburg and Adela de Villiers. They're getting on very well with each other. Adela telling stories of that time that she killed my physician. Good for them. We're returning to camp empty-handed because the Mayor Henri, who we were trying to solicit charity from, he has just died of old age. We already sorted out a boundary dispute for him because he was reading his map upside down, but now we are returning to our camp near Count Nicholas's court. And some good news at the very least. The war between Louis and Judith has ended, presumably in a white peace, because Louis still retains his lands, though the war is over. Judith now has just a single war, defending against Donald's attempts to seize Alba from her ally. As we move northwards, converting the core of the Frankish Empire to insularism, we're told that Karl has caught wind of our attempts to improve our standing with Count Nicholas and is willing to help in return for a weak hook. Eoin has moved slowly and meticulously through France, heading northwards, converting large regions to the insular faith. Normandy has accepted Judith, the Empress, as their liege, which is why this region no longer has an insularist as its top-tier ruler. But the reason that we have pushed up in this direction is to convert this little holdout. It was, for a lengthy period of time, under Italian control, and it has now joined Flanders. So Eoin is going to move the camp in, and at Calais he will attempt to 91% chance to carry out the conversion, and it is successful. And without spending any money, we're able to convert its ruler, a vassal of our good friend Duke Karl. We've left Flanders just as a raiding party arrives. We've converted a number of regions throughout Normandy and parts of France. We've also spotted that the Duke of Anjou has converted away from Cathar to Catholicism. There is still one Cathar holdout in his territory. And as we arrive back in Normandy, we look across the channel at Wessex, where our bid to strengthen insularism began, and only one region has converted. So the entire area is under a insular king. However, his health is poor, his son is a leper, and what I think Eoin will do, and this really is something that we never thought we'd be doing again, something he has said multiple times, he is going to cross the channel now that he can bring insularism to the masses. We're actually going to land on the Isle of Wight and begin converting Wessex to insularism. Departing from there and heading for Winchester, we're able to pick up some stewardship contracts, which would take us into Wales to raise a building, which is something we haven't done in quite a while. I don't think we've raised any buildings since we left England all those years ago, and the other one is to settle a boundary dispute. And indeed, as his health was poor, and as the future of the kingdom was in doubt, and as insularism was not spreading throughout his territories, Ethelred made a pilgrimage to Rome, from which he is currently returning, so we might get a chance to meet him. And here is something we haven't seen in a very long time. Eoin has failed in his bid to convert a region to insularism, so Wessex is indeed proving to be quite difficult. Eoin has been travelling the length and breadth of England, converting regions to insularism. However, Essex has just thrown up 3 failures. He has failed 3 times in a row at each of the spots that he has visited. What he's trying to do is convert all of the regions that belong to insular figures. So we have a couple of regions over here that belong to Catholics. Other than that, his hope was to convert these 3 counties, as they belong to the King of Wessex, but Essex has managed to hold out and hold on to its Catholic beliefs, and you know what? We'll leave them with them. We can see that Owen has taken on a good deal of stress as a result of a few failures in this region. We can see that the Dutch Kingdom of Munster has now fallen to Leinster, and we can see that on the Shetland Islands there is a tournament taking place, and considering that Owen has moved to the south of England, has had a tremendous deal of success in converting regions, he is going to travel to that tournament. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like Owen is going to qualify for the horse race, but that's not really why he's here. He's here predominantly for recreation, to lose some of that stress, and to see another part of the world. This is the farthest north that Owen has ever travelled, and he's now in the company of individuals he would have once been terrified of, a mighty Norse ruler. I can't wait for it to start. We visit the local tavern to check the odds for the horse race, and we meet a friend of Countess Blanche, a Cathar. I don't know what type of people Blanche is hanging around with. We could try and build a friendship with him. Instead, we're just going to keep drinking and lose 189 stress. And because of all that drink, we've managed to qualify for the horse race. What a race it's going to be. Now, it would be quite unseemly for a religious figure of Owen's reputation to actually take part in the tournament, so instead, we're going to give that task to our good friend Gilachrist. But before the race can even begin, a fight breaks out in the crowd. We don't have many of them, but Owen is going to deploy his knights to try and restore order. Instead, however, our knights have become wounded, and we're going to encourage Gilachrist to try and wound some others, as we tell him to hit some of the rival riders in the face. That was a disastrous decision. We have lost any progress that we were making massively, and Gilachrist, by the looks of it, didn't even place in the race. So close? No, I don't think so. So the poor chieftain whose tournament we came to, she's gotten the living daylights beaten out of her in the riots that broke out that we were in no way whatsoever capable of helping with. But it's given Owen plenty to write about. Now, Owen has just returned to England. He has just moved to a nearby county to spread the word of God, and he has received news that King Ethelred has died of old age, and he has been succeeded as King of Wessex by his son. So the Insular faith remains strong, and indeed his heir is his younger brother, who is also an Insularist. So Ethelred has passed away just after returning from his tour to Rome, and after seeing Insularism finally spread throughout his lands, the first major convert to the cause. And I think we'll take that as an opportunity to depart and return to France. We could travel all the ways back to Ireland, but I think we will continue south to France, continue to convert a few regions. Catharism is continuing to spread in a few areas up here, and we're seeing a major plague spread throughout the centre of the country as well. And as we return to France, and as we convert a region, I'm going to call it there for this episode. I thought this would be the last one. I did not think that there would be so many things to do. We've managed finally to see something approaching peace settle over the kingdom. Judith is succeeding in her war against, or in the defense of, the King of Alba. We are seeing a massive plague stretch through this region. We have seen Insularism spread throughout the centre of the Frankish Empire, but we are awaiting the ascension of a new emperor. And we still have a number of Cathar holdouts to deal with, and indeed we're actually beginning to see Catharism spread into areas that were previously controlled by Insularism. No doubt the next episode will be the last episode, and I hope you will join me, because Owen needs qualified jockeys in case he takes part in another tournament.